Happy New Year, amici laziali all over the world. Happy New Year, happy 2020, happy Lazio anniversary, Alistair McKenzie. I know you were there, but we have so many things to talk about. But first, Happy New Year, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Happy New Year to you as well. 2020, new decade as well, obviously, after reviewing the last one. And yeah, no, it's been good to start the new year with a win as well, and pretty nice way to end the last one as well. It feels like we've not spoken for a while, and quite a lot has happened in that time.
Yeah, before starting about the new year, we have to talk about how we finished last year, right? With the Supercoppa victory 3-1 against Juventus. I mean, I was expecting Juventus to play much better after, Lazio beat them a couple of weeks before. I thought this time they would have come prepared. They'll do their homework and know the weaknesses of Lazio. Instead, Alistair, I don't know if you agree with me, but probably Lazio dominated more the Supercoppa final than the Serie A match against Juventus. And this was really surprising for me.
Yeah, without doubt. I think that it was a real reflection of where this team is at the moment. It was, I remember saying after the league win over Juve that it was a statement result. It says that this team is capable of winning these games, of beating these teams, but the confidence with which they took to the pitch in Riyadh, the manner in which they controlled the game as well in key phases, and that they kept pushing as well. Lazio teams of the past, perhaps, and many other teams for that matter, may well, after going in front against a team like Juve, make defensive changes or try to kind of hold on to what you've got. But that was a team that wasn't willing to, just hope for the best. That was a team that was wanting to make sure that they were on the front foot throughout the game. And it can make a real difference to a season. I think when we were talking about the Supercoppa in a previous show, I mentioned that even if people have mixed opinions about how important the actual trophy is, but there's no doubting how important it is to beat a team like Juventus, who have put out their strongest side, to get hold of a trophy. I mean, that is yet another big statement, not only of where this team is right now, but as to what they can achieve this season.
No, you're absolutely right. We said it. Coppa Italia is important, even though you beat Atalanta. But beating Juventus, it's always great. And one stat that make me really happy is that Cristiano Ronaldo have won 12 consecutive final. This was the first one he lost. So this tells you a lot about that match. And again, I thought the first half Lazio played better, but not much better than Juventus. The second half was nearly dominated by Lazio. And knowing Juventus, knowing how many good players they had, I thought, okay, they found the equalizer at the end of the first half. Now in the second half, they're going to start pushing it. For Lazio, it's going to be real tough. Instead, I don't want to sound like Inzaghi. I don't remember any saves from Strakosha, but really, in the second half, I thought Strakosha didn't do pretty much nothing, and Lazio deserved to win. And the other point, Alistair, is Senad Lulic is becoming the players of the final, right? He scored in another final, I don't remember against who, and then he scored against Juventus in a final. I mean,
what a goal as well. I mean, where did that come from? It was again, he's there at the back post in a big final, like you say, but it was quite an unexpected strike. It really took me by surprise, I have to say. Great finish.
And the other thing, Alistair, about that final that surprised me in a very positive way is that we always complain, we say that the Lazio bench is not huge, there's not very talented. But in the Supercoppa, and I don't know how you felt, but when Luis Alberto came out and said, oh my, he's one of the most talented, he's playing really well, etc. But Marco Parolo made the assist. Danilo Cataldi scored. So everybody coming from the bench had a huge impact in the match. That's a very positive sign, I think.
Yeah, and I think it embodies this really positive atmosphere around the squad at the moment, which is absolutely radiating from absolutely everything they're doing right now, from the president to the players, the coach, sporting director, everyone, whenever they're speaking to the press at the moment, is just radiating that belief and that confidence and that happiness with where they're at. And I think the fact that, yes, there are players who will be getting more regular game time than others, but I think the ones on the bench are aware of the fact that they are capable of playing an important role in this team. And Inzaghi's, as he always has done throughout his time at Lazio, has done a fantastic job of making them all feel valued and making them all feel like they'll have a chance to show what they can do. So you're right to bring up the substitutes. And that Cataldi free kick, honestly, I could have just sat there for the last 2 weeks just watching that over and over again. It was amazing. The angles, the kind of diversity of angles we got of that free kick. I don't think there was a possible way of hitting it better than he did. It was incredible.
No, absolutely. And when you have Luis Alberto, you don't think about other options. But Danilo Cataldi is quite good at free kicks and corner kicks. So I'm really pleased he scored the final goal because, we said it often, he's from the Primavera. He's a real Lazio fan. And seeing him scoring in a final, it's really nice to see from a Lazio fan point of view. And so, to be honest, I wasn't that confident that Lazio could win it, and I was really surprised. But at the end, you have to say that Lazio played much better than Juventus. And it's funny because after the match, Sarri get a lot of complaints. A lot of people said that Sarri made the wrong decision, etc. I thought Lazio played so well that it didn't matter who Sarri would have picked. Lazio would have won anyway.
Yeah, and up until the league game, remember as well, Inzaghi had never beaten Sarri in his career before, and all of a sudden he's beaten him twice in the space of, 2 weeks? So it's, I think as much credit needs to go to Inzaghi as is taken away from Sarri, I suppose. And on top of that, I think that there was, I don't want to, suppose, get into the nitty-gritty like this, but there was, in my mind, a fairly clear red card from Matuidi towards the start of the game that was ignored. So, if anything, it could have been an even more comfortable win than it was, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't want to talk about referee, but yeah, I saw it again after the match, and it was simply embarrassing not noticing. He didn't give the free kick at all, so that was simply unbelievable. But anyway, Lazio won that match. Now the thing going back to this year, that after a match like that, you expect Lazio to play at the same level, but against Brescia, we saw, I don't want to say lazy, but a team playing very slowly. Obviously, the question mark is it because Luis Alberto wasn't playing, or is it because, after the Christmas break, the team need time to recover? Because Lazio find a way to win against Brescia, but now there are a couple of tough games coming on, and we need to see the best Lazio to win these matches. So I'm a little bit worried about what I saw last Sunday, Alistair. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these games, I suppose, that you can see it in one of two ways. It's been quite interesting, I think, to see that the response to it in the media in large has been a fairly positive one, because the focus has been on, again, the fact that Lazio keep coming up with the goods in the final minutes. They've now scored 6 stoppage time goals this season, which is more than any other team, and I think there's been 4 in the last 5 games now as well. There's been all these late wins: Cagliari, Milan, Sassuolo, even Fiorentina, going back that far. Finished off Juventus in stoppage time as well. I mean, it's something they're making a habit of, and because they're doing it so regularly now, people have stopped being able to say it's just luck, because it's not luck if you're doing it almost every week. So on the one hand, that is a very positive trait that they're still showing. On the other hand, you're quite right. I think maybe the players had a bit too much panettone over the break. I don't know what it was, but that's not the performance that I suppose is expected of a team on this kind of form against a team that's struggling at the other end of the table. It was never going to be as easy a game as I think perhaps some people thought it would be. But I think the Luis Alberto question you raised is a good one, because I think he is absolutely integral to making this team tick. And not only his absence, but the absence of Lucas Leiva alongside him as well. When you take those two players out of the team at once, you're really taking a lot of that team's midfield identity away. You know, its biggest creative outlet and the guy who kind of keeps it all together as well. So I think their absences were felt, and I'm hopeful that on Saturday against Napoli, with them both back in the team, we'll see a bit more structure to the game.
Yes, and I have to say that the decision to play Tucu Correa as playmaker in the midfield didn't work out. I think Luis Alberto is the only regista in this team, and the other players that can do it is Danilo Cataldi. Obviously, it's different from Luis Alberto, but Danilo Cataldi can play regista, and probably Johnny can move from the left to a central position and play as Luis Alberto. But Correa, it's more a trequartista. He's not the assist man. He's the one, filling the gap, finding the space behind the defense. And I thought that decision that sent, I think, the message to the team. It said, even without Luis Alberto, we are trying to attack the opponent team. I think it didn't work out and didn't help Lazio. And the other thing we have to say is that obviously when Brescia fell one man down, the tactic they applied was pretty much clear. Balotelli was the lonely striker, and all the other players were defending. So it wasn't easy to pass the wall that Brescia had, especially in the match where Lazzari on one side and Lulic and Johnny, when he came in, were struggling to cross from the side. I thought Lazzari didn't have a very good match. Inzaghi said that the pitch was terrible, was very slow, and you can see that sometimes when you were trying to find the deep space, the player running with the ball would stop, and so I thought that created a lot of problem to Lazzari and Johnny. But yeah, I thought it was a tough match, and again, people watch the table but doesn't watch the team. Brescia is not a bad team. They have quite good defending, and if Balotelli start playing football, they can be a very dangerous team. So yes, Lazio didn't play great football, but I thought overall it was a good performance, or at least coming back with 3 points. It was really important. Let's not forget that Inter and Juventus struggle at Brescia. So I thought overall it was very positive.
I think if it's a bit of a cliche, but if you're capable of winning on your off days, then generally that's a good sign of a good team, because I'd say overall it probably was an off day, considering the way with the level we have seen this team play at as recently as the Supercoppa, to then struggle against a 10-man Brescia team for so long. But the other thing worth looking ahead to now as well is that's the last time that Lazio are playing outside of Rome until the 9th of February, which is pretty amazing kind of quirk of the fixture list that this has thrown up. But it's going to keep me busy. There's 6 games in Rome between now and the time Lazio travel to Parma. And so that win in Brescia not only was important, obviously, to keep the winning run going, but to really, that's it might be a mental barrier to some players, the change of the year, the winter break, the fact that does stall your momentum a bit. But to be able to come back, just get those 3 points on the board, I think it's the kind of result that'll just settle people down a bit, allow them to just, rediscover their mojo where they were before, and now safe in the knowledge that they're going to be on home soil for this long now, 6 games in a row. That really provides a platform for this team to carry on that momentum, because the home form so far this season has been excellent.
Yes, and it has been a very important victory because Napoli lost, Roma lost. So considering that Lazio has to still play against Verona, and again, it's going to be one of those matches that Lazio will play at home. There's the chance to, spread and go +7 against Roma. So there's a big chance of improving the gap, which would be really fundamental. Um, it's true, there are a lot of matches at the Olimpico, but I think this is a very key moment of the season. If Lazio can keep winning, well, obviously you cannot hope to win all those 6 matches, but if Lazio is able to get points from all these matches, well, then the chance to qualify for the Champions League would be, increasing a lot, and especially the next 3 matches, I think they are very fundamental. There is Napoli, Sampdoria, and the Derby. Getting points out of these 3 matches would be really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on that note, one of the first questions, well, the first question we got, I got around to asking people for questions quite late today, so apologies about that if you haven't had time to get one in before you hear this. But Per Nielsen said, when will the collapse arrive this year? We all know it will happen before the end of the season. So what do you think of that, Vittorio? A nice cheery message to get us going for 2020?
Yeah, we needed some. I don't know. I don't know. My biggest concern, Alistair, and I wanted to talk about it in the podcast, is that for me the biggest weaknesses of this team is the left side. Uh, Now this week there have been a lot of concern because Lulic didn't train till today with the team, and Johnny was hurt. But even against Brescia, Johnny didn't convince me. And so who's going to play against Napoli? That it's a good team. I saw them playing against Inter. The second half, Napoli played much better than Inter. So we cannot rely every time on Lulic. But at the moment, with Lukaku injured and who knows when he's going to be able to play again, there are not very much good options there for Lazio. And this is my biggest concern. I mean, the problem is not the form. The problem is going to be when Lulic is not able to play. On the other side, we have Marusic. Again, he's not very well fitted again. Uh, he didn't train this morning, and so on. But you can play Patrick there, etc. My problem is the left side. That's going to be, the weaknesses of this team. And yeah, we are in December. We are in January. There's the market open, and I didn't hear any news about Lazio signing a left winger.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's amazing to think that, to be honest, considering that we started this season with 4 players in the squad who can cover that one position. It was almost the best staffed position in the entire squad, with Lukaku, Johnny, Lulic, and Dermisi. Obviously, Dermisi is now over at Nice. Lukaku is just eternally on the treatment table. And yeah, you're right. We can't always rely on Lulic. What I would say, though, is I think Lulic has actually really upped his game in the last month or so. I've been a lot more impressed with his performances lately than I was at the start of the season. And I think that's been really encouraging, to be honest. So I think we can just rely on him to keep going a bit more, hopefully. The training reports today did suggest that he should be fit for Saturday, so that's a good thing. And yeah, I think Johnny just obviously needs a bit more time, and he needs a bit more adjustment and to get used to the system and so on. But I'm not so concerned about that I would say it's my biggest worry about the entire season collapsing. I think to answer that question, it kind of depends on what your definition of a collapse would be, because we've won 9 games in a row now. If you consider a collapse for that run to end, I don't think that's fair, because we're not going to win every game for between now and the end of the season. So I think that we should expect that this form is going to drop off at some point. But I think the key thing is not to lose faith at that point, not to collapse in a puddle of self-doubt at that point because of what's happened before. Because this team, it started the season fairly indifferently, and it picked up the momentum. And I think a lot of what's happened that's been so good about Lazio recently is because of that unity and that belief in the team. So yes, we might lose a game here and there, but I still think this team should have enough to make it through because of that spirit they have.
Well, we have to say something because in the last weeks there have been a lot of talk about Scudetto, and I agree with Tare. Lazio have to think about reaching the third position, the Champions League spot, because that's the target of the team. I don't think this team is built for winning the Scudetto. Yes, people talk about Leicester, but Leicester won because the top team in the Premier League failed. So obviously, if Juventus and Inter start losing point, which they are not doing at the moment, then Lazio can fight for the Scudetto. But at the moment, this is not a goal for Lazio, and saying that Lazio can fight for the Scudetto is not helping the team. I think it's not doing good to Lazio because Inter and Juventus has a better team than Lazio. So the goal this season is to reach the Champions League, and this has to be the target. So if collapse mean Lazio won't win the Scudetto, then yes, obviously it's already happening for me. But if it's reaching the Champions League, well, I think at the moment, as I said, against Brescia-Lazio didn't play great football, but then you have to see the other teams. Roma lost against Torino, didn't play that well. Milan, even with Ibrahimovic, is bad. Atalanta are playing well, so that's a team to focus on. But yeah, obviously Lazio won't win all the match from here till the end of the season, but we have to hope that we get more points as possible, especially in the coming weeks, because if Lazio beats Napoli, then Napoli probably is out of the Champions League race. If we get points against Sampdoria and Roma, the gap with the fifth will be increasing. And let's not forget that there is Roma Juventus this Sunday. So, if Lazio wins and maybe Roma doesn't win, the gap will get wider, and that will be really huge.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really important to keep sight of that. Like you say, the goal is fourth place, and let's be honest, that's a goal that not everybody was believing in this club being able to achieve at the start of the season. Finishing fourth would be a massive success. It'd be a massive success for this club. And like you say, it's not a team that's built to do anything near competing for the Scudetto. So I think that if the team starts to drop points, if they start to slide a bit, but still manage to scrape fourth place on the final day of the season, I'll still take that. I'll still take that every day of the week, because like you say, the objective for this team is Champions League football, which we've not had for the last 13 years. So to achieve that would be massive, and it's the obstacle we've fallen just short of it in the past. So yeah, I think that the important thing is more to remain calm if things do start to slide a bit, rather than to set lofty objectives now that we're doing well.
No, and I have to say something that I think that this winning streak, the way that the Supercoppa as well, has given probably more confidence to this team that they had in the past years. Because, well, the last manager to win 9 matches in a row with Lazio was Eriksson. So we're talking about, really 20 years ago. So I think, and you can see it because even against Brescia, Lazio wasn't playing great football, but they scored in the last second because they believed that if they could create a chance, they could have won it. And I think this is the biggest difference compared to this Lazio to the one in the past. This confidence that they gain thanks to this winning streak. And not only the winning streak, but how did they play? Who did they beat? Beating twice Juventus is a big result. And we said it on this podcast. Lazio lost matches, but even against Inter, it wasn't. Lazio could have easily come out from San Siro with points. So this proves you that this team can beat any other team. And even beating Milan at San Siro finally gave extra boost, extra confidence to this team. So I think the level of confidence this year is much higher. Obviously, problems can happen, injury will arrive, etc. It's important that the team try to make more points possible now when the confidence is high, there are not too many injuries, because bad times will happen. But if you have 10 points of lead, then you can handle it and still reach the Champions League.
Yeah, and what do you think of this Napoli team as well at the moment? Because I think this is a fixture that's often tripped Lazio up in the past, especially when Sarri was in charge in Napoli. They've proven a difficult team for us to really get much out of, but this is the best opportunity I think Lazio have had to get 3 points in this fixture for quite some time. This team obviously is in a bit of turmoil. Gattuso's come in, he's trying to sort them out. It's not going as well as he might have hoped. And I thought Inter made fairly short work of them, to be honest, on the weekend as well. Or Monday, can't remember when it was. They're
Monday.
Still really trying to find an identity. They're almost the opposite of Lazio, in that Lazio are a team that are very sure about what their roles are, very sure about what the tactical identity of the team are, what each player's job is, and where they're supposed to be when. That is pretty much the opposite to how you see Napoli at the moment, who have changed shape, who are still trying to find the best way of putting their array of talent out on the pitch. But that's an important part of this, I suppose, as well, is that this is a team in a fair bit of crisis, it has to be said, but it's also a team with pretty much the same squad that finished second last year and a hell of a lot of quality. So I do hope that there's no complacency on Lazio's part because of the state of affairs between the two clubs, because I still think this is a really dangerous fixture, despite the way that the form table looks at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very important match for Lazio, and at the same time difficult, because yes, if you see the table, you say Napoli is really struggling, but in the last matches something changed. I mean, against Inter, and we're talking about Inter that is at the same points of Juventus. If you take off the first 30 minutes, then Napoli played better than Inter. What's different is they're making silly mistakes. All the 3 goals of Inter last Monday was mistakes from Napoli. Di Lorenzo falling, Meret not saving that Lukaku strike, Manolas doing stupid things. So it's individual errors that are punishing Napoli. You can see that they have still the talent. Yes, Callejon is not as fast as a couple of years ago. Insigne maybe is not. I think Insigne was overrated, but still a very good player. So they have a lot of talent. They're making silly mistakes. But I was a little bit concerned because in the second half against Inter, they played very well. The question is, after this defeat, I think the confidence is very low, obviously. They can beat Lazio, and you have that teams like Milan for Lazio that you can never beat, even if you are much better than them. So I think last time Lazio beat Napoli at home, it was with Mauri. What was it, 3-1, something like that?
Yeah.
So it was years ago. Obviously, Lazio is in a better form, better confidence. Napoli is making a lot of stupid mistakes. I don't know if Koulibaly will be able to play. That will make a big difference. But yes, Lazio have to be really, really careful because this team is not playing bad. They have a lot of talent. They're making a lot of mistakes. Obviously, we hope they keep making mistakes even Saturday. But Lazio have to play better and think that the match is not win. They have to beat Napoli.
Speaking of individual mistakes, one of the selection doubts from a Lazio perspective that's been talked about in the build-up to this game has been about whether Luis Felipe is going to retain his place for this match or if he's going to be replaced by Patrick as a result of his performance against Brescia. So I wanted to ask you what you thought of that decision, or or where you stand on that, because it was clearly a poor error of judgment from him, I thought, on the goal. It was a very poor goal to concede, and I think Balotelli made him look a bit silly, to be honest. But is that enough in itself to justify dropping him from the team completely, or is this a young player who deserves I suppose deserves some leeway where, he is young, he is developing, he will make mistakes, but we need to keep faith in him. Where do you stand on it?
Well, obviously, Luis Felipe was playing really, really well. He's very young. He's very talented. I didn't like him at all against Brescia. He made a mistake with a goal Brescia scored, but all the match I thought he made other mistake. He wasn't, I don't know, maybe he lost his trust a little bit or was distracted, not focused. I don't know. Um, I rate very high Luis Felipe. I think he can turn to be a very good defender, but maybe give another chance to Patrick or Bastos. Bastos is losing position in defense. Uh, so, to be honest, it's what Inzaghi is seeing in the training. If Luis Felipe is training well as last year, then he can start. Otherwise, you can opt for Patrick. I think a lot it depends how you want to play. Napoli has very fast attackers, so maybe you want someone faster like Patrick to play there. I don't know. I mean, um, Luis Felipe is a very talented player. Everybody make mistakes during the season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he starts, and I wouldn't be unhappy if he starts. I think he's a really talented player, and made a bad match. It happens sometimes. So
Yeah, exactly. I think that it would actually, in my mind, be quite a nice message from Inzaghi to retain faith in him, because this is the most settled defence that Lazio have had for a long time at the moment with Radu Acerbi and Felipe, and we've talked a lot in the past about how much rotation has happened in that defence, how much the back three has shuffled around when the other parts of the team have picked themselves, really. And I think Felipe, of all those players, he's the least predictable one. He's the one that I suppose you get the least guarantees from, because he can have absolutely tremendous matches, but he can also have disappointing ones like against Brescia. So I think that in order for his development to continue, in order for him to improve as a player and really respond to that kind of error or that kind of performance, he needs to be given the opportunity to correct it on the pitch. So in my mind, I would quite like to see him start, because I think if he can get back out there and put in a good performance against a side like Napoli, it would immediately put that behind him. Whereas if he's benched because of it and he takes a while to work himself back into the team, I think it'll probably take him longer to build his confidence back up again. And from what we've seen of him so far, I do think that he's a bit of a confidence player, and when his tail's up, that's when he's at his best, and that's when we've seen the best of him. So I'd quite like to see him starting that game, to be honest, because especially if Patrick is the other option, I'm not exactly thrilled by that prospect either.
yeah, also because Napoli would play with three strikers, and so Lazio defense will be one against one all the match. So probably it's better to have a real defender there. Before talking about the birthday of Lazio, I was a little bit surprised Sunday when Andre Anderson came in the last minutes of the match. I know Lazio had to attack, but you still had Berisha there on the bench. Instead, Inzaghi played Andre Anderson. He didn't play well at all, but that's not the question. Uh, do you think this is the message to say, okay, Berisha, uh, I don't trust you anymore. It's better for you to find another team, or he simply felt, well, we have to win this match. Let's put a more offensive midfielder.
Well, I've had the sense that Berisha's time is up for a while, to be honest. I don't think that Inzaghi's been impressed by his application, either in training or on the pitch. And obviously he was given an opportunity off the bench in that Celtic game, and that went disastrously wrong. He was defended. Obviously, Inzaghi's very good at doing that, at defending his players in the press after the match. But look, the January window's open now. The mercato business is up and running, and at this point, I would be amazed if he's still part of the squad by the end of the month. I think one way or another, they're going to find a way to get rid of him, because he's not getting games. He's taking up a space in the squad. He's taking up wage bill, and I think if we were going to see more of him by now, we would have done. That's not necessarily a judgment on the quality of the player. I think those are just the circumstances. There is a hierarchy in this team in the midfield, and he's too far down it. Whereas a player like Andre Anderson, we still haven't seen anything of. So you're right, it might just be a case of the fact that he's a more attack-minded player, but he is also a young player that we've got hopes for, who can possibly make an impact in the first team in the future. Whereas Berisha is someone who's been in the first team for the last year and a half now, and not had as many opportunities as he would have liked, and has also been unlucky with injuries and so on. But he's had more chances than Anderson.
Talking about transfer market, so Durmisi have left. Milala is going to Livorno, probably. Berisha has been linked to a lot of clubs. Do you think someone would come to Lazio, or this will be it?
To be honest, I never think anyone's going to come to Lazio in January. I mean, it's not been a particularly fruitful month for us in the past, and the transfer mill with Lazio is a bit ridiculous most of the time anyway, so I end up ignoring most of it until you hear something pretty concrete from someone you trust. And as it stands, I've not really heard anything like that. So I don't know. It depends on circumstance a little bit, but I think probably Inzaghi's looking at the squad at the moment, with Caicedo playing well and Correa Immobile doing well, the midfield bursting with talent. The defence has found some solidity, and I think for Lotito to invest in January, he's going to need a good reason to. And at the moment, looking at the way the team's going, I don't think he has many good reasons to go out and spend much. So I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. If someone doesn't come from Salernitana, I think it's going to be very hard to see Lazio signing a new player. But before wrapping up this podcast, Alistair, have you been to the celebration tonight?
Well, the big celebration was last night. 5,000 in Piazza della Libertà. Unfortunately, I was at about 25,000 feet at that point, so I missed it. Not by much, but missed it by a couple of hours, which is a bit annoying because I was flying back to Rome then. But yeah, I mean, great scenes. The birthday celebrations obviously happen every year, but this year is particularly big efforts been made for the 120th. And I did go along there today to the Piazza. For those who don't know, that's considered the birthplace of the club. And previously, there's only really been a plaque up on a wall there to kind of mark the birthplace of the club. So something I was very happy to see going along there this afternoon was that they've now put up a number of kind of information boards around the Piazza. I think there's 3 of them, and telling you about the history of the club and the foundation story of Luigi Biaggiarelli and so on. And they're amazingly, Vittorio mentioned to you before we started, even translated into English, which is something unheard of. Not brilliant translation, if I'm honest.
Okay.
But they are there in English as well. So it's nice to see. I think that for a long time has been a kind of symbolic, place in Rome for Lazio fans. So it's nice to see a bit more Lazio presence there now. And if anyone happens to be around, there are still a few things going on. There's some tents up selling merchandise. You can go and see some of the old kits from the early part of the 20th century and old pictures, and they've got a film playing going back through the history of Lazio and things. So yeah, it was nice to see. I think they've actually managed the whole thing very well.
That's good. That's good. And there's still gonna be things going on this Saturday for Napoli, for Lazio Napoli. Obviously, I think they're gonna be Lazio's gonna play with a new kit that it looks like it's gonna be like the one of the Scudetto, the blue with the black line in the middle of the chest, so the Puma one. Uh, and it looks like that's gonna be the first shirt for Lazio from that match till the end of the season. So, and there are gonna be other celebration there. So, if you manage to go to the match, then enjoy it. I hope it's gonna be broadcast everywhere around the world, so you're gonna be able to see it. It's with the Roma Juve, the most important match of the league of the Serie A weekend. So again, it's gonna be a very important match for Lazio, as we said. Really, really important to win, to increase the gap, and to gain more confidence. As we said last time, Lazio beat Napoli was ages ago, so it would be a good sign to beat Napoli, and probably this is the easiest time to play against Napoli. Probably they're in a terrible run of form, even though with Gattuso things have changed. Now there's a big question mark because Correa didn't train, and uh, and there's a big chance that Caicedo will start near Ciro Immobile. So I don't know. This year Caicedo have played really well, but I think Correa it's a better player overall. I don't know. Do you agree with me?
Oh yeah, obviously. I mean, Correa is undoubtedly the more talented player of the two. But I mean, look, Caicedo's earned his opportunities by now. He has played a good role for this team, and he can be a handful, And in the past, him and Immobile have struck up a good understanding with each other. So it's not what it was in the past, I would say, in terms of how I look at it. Losing a strike partner to Immobile and having Caicedo step in the past would have been a bit of a blow. But now I do have more faith in the guy. I do think that he's capable of delivering, and in these big games too. So yeah, I'd prefer to have Correa up there because I think he's been absolutely terrific the tail end of the year. But yeah, Caicedo can do a job. Wait for the injury time, the Zona Caicedo, and it's all good from there.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest with you, that Immobile scored the last second goal last time.
Were you really disappointed? Is that how you would have described yourself in that moment?
Well, not really disappointed, but after the celebration, I said, Chiro scored, not Caicedo. But still important to get those 3 points. Really, really important against a team, that I think is going to be really hard for other teams to win against, because Brescia is a very well organized team. Now we have to see if Balotelli decide to play the only match of the season against us, or he's going to play like that all the season long. I'm not convinced about that. But yeah, that made the match even more harder for Lazio. So, getting these 3 points after the break is really good. And now there's Napoli, another very, very important match for Lazio for continue this race for the Champions League. Alistair, I think we can wrap it up here. I don't know if you have a stat to finish up.
Yeah, got a couple. There, obviously, we already mentioned that there's been 9 wins in a row. That has matched the record that was set by Sven-Göran Eriksson's team in 98-99. So if we beat Napoli, it will be a new club record of 10 wins in a row in the league, that is, Serie A. Also, perhaps more importantly, Lazio have scored now at least twice in their last 12 league games. And the only team who have done better than that was the Grande Torino team of 1948, and they managed it in 13 games. So again, this is a Lazio team that is smashing records, not only of their own, but of the league as a whole. So that would be quite a nice one to beat, that one. it says a lot about this team's potency in front of goal.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we hope it continues against Napoli, a team that instead is struggling defending. And thinking about the summer when people were saying, "Wow, with Manolas and Koulibaly, Napoli is going to have the best defense of the Serie A," and instead they are allowing goal to every team. So it's going to be a very interesting match, Alistair, and we're going to talk after that match, right? And see how things went for Lazio. And again, as usual, you can follow us on our social platform and on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Thank you very much, Alistair. Good night.
Cheers.